Hey everyone. Tonight we don't step into a war, but into a powder one born in temples high above the clouds. Before it was a line on a mirror, it was a sacred leaf whispered to the gods of the Andes. Centuries later, it would cross oceans, crowned by kings, swallowed by empires, and sold as salvation in a bottle. It built fortunes, killed nations, and promised euphoria while quietly unmaking the human soul. You won't hear of glory here, only priests turned dealers, scientists chasing purity, and a world addicted to its own invention. From Incan altars to Wall Street penthouses, from holy offerings to Hollywood sins. This is the story of cocaine, the powder that corrupted dynasties. If you're drawn to the dark corners of history, hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments, what's one addiction humanity has never escaped? Imagine standing on the breathtaking peaks of the Andes, where the air is thin and crisp, carrying the scent of ancient earth and distant snow. Here, before the thunder of empires or the glitter of gold, you discover a leaf, unassuming, yet profoundly significant. It is small, a vibrant green, held in the deepest reverence by those who have lived among these towering giants for millennia. For the Inca, this was more than a plant. It was a divine whisper from Inti, the sun god himself, a sacred gift bestowed upon them from the heavens. You can almost feel the gentle coolness of the morning mist giving way to the sun's first rays, illuminating the emerald green of the coca plant. It was a lifeline in this challenging, majestic landscape. A silent companion that eased the pangs of hunger when food was scarce, melted away the weariness that clung to the body after arduous climbs, and soothed the dizzying effects of high altitude, where every breath feels like a struggle. Picture the priests, their faces etched with wisdom, their movements slow and deliberate. You see them gently selecting the tender leaves, placing them carefully in their mouths, chewing slowly, allowing the subtle essence to unfurl. They did this not for pleasure, but as a bridge, a conduit to the divine. With each quiet mastication, they believed they were communing with the gods, seeking guidance, interpreting the whispers of the unseen world. Imagine the soft rustle of their ceremonial robes, the low hum of their chants, as the sacred leaf opened doors to ancient knowledge. Then, shift your gaze to the Chasqui, the swift runners of the empire. Feel the grit of the mountain paths beneath their bare feet, the burning in their lungs as they carried vital messages across hundreds of miles. These incredible athletes, their endurance legendary, relied on the coca leaf to sustain their journeys. You can almost taste the slightly bitter, earthy flavor in their mouths, feeling the steady surge of focus and stamina it provided, allowing them to traverse treacherous mountain passes and sprawling valleys with unwavering resolve, their steps a rhythmic drumbeat echoing through the vast quiet. But then, the quiet tapestry of the Andes begins to fray. You sense a change in the air, a distant tremor, as the Spanish conquistadors arrive, their eyes, sharp and acquisitive, first saw the coca leaf with disdain. To them, with their Christian worldview, this native plant, so central to indigenous life, was quickly labeled the devil's plant. Imagine the clash of cultures, the gentle reverence of the Inca meeting the stern judgment of the newcomers. Yet, a chilling realization soon dawned upon the conquistadors. Deep within the earth, in places like Potosi, the silver mines stretched like gaping wounds, demanding an impossible toll from human bodies. The air was thick with dust and despair, the labor ceaseless and brutal. You can almost hear the rhythmic clang of pickaxes against rock, the groans of exhaustion echoing in the dark tunnels. The Spanish observed that their indigenous laborers, given the coca leaf, could work longer, endure more, and complain less, staving off hunger and exhaustion just long enough to continue their fatal toil. And so, you witness a profound and tragic transformation. What was once a sacred gift from a benevolent God, a tool for spiritual connection and physical sustenance, was twisted into an instrument of conquest and exploitation. The humble leaf, once chewed by priests for divine communion, now kept miners alive just long enough to die in the brutal pursuit of silver, fueling an empire across the ocean. Its sacred purpose was stripped away, replaced by the cold, calculated efficiency of imperial ambition. The whispers of the Andes, once prayers, now carried the metallic echo of chains and the silent suffering of a people. We drift across oceans now, carried on the winds of change, from the spiritual peaks of the Andes to the bustling, intellectual centers of 19th century Europe. Here, the focus shifts from ancient rituals to the relentless pursuit of scientific understanding, a dissection of nature's secrets with methodical precision. You can almost feel the cool, polished surfaces of the laboratory, smell the faint tang of chemicals, and hear the focused hum of scholarly inquiry. This era was captivated by the idea of isolating, understanding, and ultimately harnessing the very essence of life itself. In this climate of fervent discovery, our quiet leaf from the Andes would once again come under the keen eye of a curious mind. Picture a laboratory, perhaps in the year 1860, filled with glass beakers and precise instruments. A dedicated researcher, a man named Albert Niemann, meticulously toiled, driven by the desire to uncover the active compounds hidden within the coca plant. Through painstaking processes of extraction and purification, he managed to isolate a pure alkaloid, a crystalline substance that he christened cocaine. At that moment, it was merely a scientific achievement, a new chemical formula, an interesting curiosity. You might imagine the quiet satisfaction of Niemann, unaware of the colossal ripple his discovery would soon send across the globe. For a time, it remained largely unnoticed, a footnote in the burgeoning annals of chemistry. The world, however, was about to be introduced to this potent extract not through a scientific paper, but through the ingenious marketing of a Frenchman named Angelo Mariani. You can almost visualize his elegant Parisian salon, the clink of wine glasses, the sophisticated chatter. Mariani was an entrepreneur, a visionary who understood the desires of his era, a longing for vitality, for energy, for an escape from everyday maladies. He took the humble coca leaves and, with a touch of brilliant inspiration, steeped them in fine Bordeaux wine. The result was Vin Mariani, a tonic presented as the ultimate panacea. Imagine the taste, the rich, complex notes of a good wine, subtly interwoven with the stimulating, almost electric, essence of coca. It was marketed as a restorative, a stimulant, a cure for everything from fatigue to melancholia. Its popularity soared, embraced by the most influential figures of the time. You might picture popes, their pontifical robes rustling, endorsing its invigorating qualities. Queens, adorned in jewels, sipping this exotic elixir. Even celebrated inventors and writers, seeking to sharpen their minds and energize their creativity, sang its praises. Vin Mariani became a symbol of sophistication, a secret weapon for the elite, whispered about in drawing rooms and celebrated in artistic circles. Across the Atlantic, in the vibrant, rapidly expanding landscape of America, another pharmacist, John Pemberton, observed Mariani's success with keen interest. You can almost hear the bustling sounds of a late 19th century American city, the clip-clop of horse-drawn carriages, the murmur of nascent industry. Pemberton, himself a former Confederate officer grappling with his own health issues, sought to create his own version of this popular tonic. He took Mariani's basic formula, but adapted it to American tastes, replacing the wine with a sweet syrup and invigorating carbonated soda water. And in that moment of sweet, fizzy innovation, an icon was born. Coca-Cola, as it was named, promised refreshment and invigoration. You can almost taste the distinctive blend of flavors, the tantalizing fizz on your tongue. For many years, each glass of this world-famous beverage carried a subtle, powerful secret, a measure of cocaine, derived from that ancient Andean leaf. It was an ingredient that provided an undeniable kick, a subtle lift that made people crave another glass. The world's favorite tonic, innocent on the surface, carried a hidden bite, a clandestine jolt of energy that would profoundly shape the tastes and habits of an entire generation, unknowingly ushering in a new chapter in the powder's story. You journey now to the intellectual heart of Vienna, to the late 19th century, a time of profound scientific inquiry and burgeoning psychological thought. Imagine the dimly lit studies, heavy with the scent of pipe tobacco and old books, where minds grappled with the mysteries of the human psyche. Here, you encounter a young, brilliant neurologist, Sigmund Freud, whose name would become synonymous with the uncharted depths of the subconscious. Freud, ever the keen observer and intrepid self-experimenter, discovered cocaine with an almost giddy enthusiasm. You might picture him in his private study, the flickering gaslight casting long shadows, as he first tastes the pure, crystalline powder. He wasn't just observing its effects, he was experiencing them firsthand, feeling a surge of mental clarity and an exhilarating sense of well-being. To him, this was no mere chemical. It was a revelation. The gift of the gods, as he so passionately declared. He embraced its effects wholeheartedly, convinced he had stumbled upon a miracle. You can almost hear the confident tone in his voice as he wrote to his fiancée, Martha Bernays, describing the drug's incredible power. He believed it held the key to unlocking human potential, a universal cure. Imagine him offering it to her, truly believing he was bestowing upon her a profound blessing. He touted it as a potent remedy for the common afflictions of the era, the oppressive weight of sadness, the draining grip of fatigue, and even, remarkably, the insidious chains of morphine addiction. He believed it could lift the spirits, sharpen the mind, and offer a gentle path to freedom from other, darker dependencies. His enthusiasm was infectious, resonating deeply within the medical community. You can almost see other doctors, inspired by Freud's glowing testimonials and their own initial experiments, following his lead. They, too, began to explore the therapeutic possibilities of this new wonder drug. Among these eager researchers was Carl Koller, an ophthalmologist. His groundbreaking discovery would forever change the landscape of medicine. You might envision him in his clinic, delicately applying a solution of cocaine to an eye, watching in amazement as the patient experiences a profound and localized numbness. This revelation, The power of cocaine to block pain paved the way for modern anesthesia, transforming surgical procedures from agonizing ordeals into manageable experiences. Suddenly, cocaine was not just a tonic or scientific curiosity. It was integrated into the very fabric of medical practice, an indispensable tool for relief and healing. Beyond the clinics and operating rooms, its influence spread, weaving itself into the cultural tapestry of the fin de siècle. You might observe artists finding renewed inspiration under its influence, poets crafting verses with heightened intensity, and the ambitious embracing it as a symbol of aspiration, a secret weapon in their pursuit of success. It became a byword for progress, for modernity, for a vibrant, forward-thinking society. By the 1890s, the floodgates had truly opened. You could find cocaine almost everywhere, subtly integrated into everyday products. Imagine walking into an apothecary and seeing it in throat lozenges, promising to soothe a scratchy throat. It was present in cough syrups, offering relief from persistent coughs. Shockingly, it even appeared in baby drops, marketed to calm, fussing infants. And for those seeking a different kind of stimulation, it was infused into cigarettes, offering a new kind of social indulgence. The era of scientific enlightenment, in its fervent pursuit of progress, had, perhaps unknowingly, opened Pandora's box. The promise of boundless energy, euphoria, and therapeutic wonder had led to the widespread dissemination of a powerful substance, its true, darker nature yet to be fully understood. You sense a quiet unease beneath the surface of this glittering scientific triumph, a foreboding whisper of the shadows that would soon emerge from this perceived gift of the gods. You feel a subtle shift now, a darkening in the atmosphere, as the golden promise of cocaine begins to tarnish. The initial euphoria, once celebrated as a gift, slowly, insidiously, transforms into something far more sinister madness. You can almost hear the soft, unsettling whispers of addiction beginning to take hold. A seductive force that once embraced proves almost impossible to relinquish. The dreamlike state of heightened awareness gives way to a gnawing, insatiable craving. Users, once vibrant and energetic, now find themselves trapped in a relentless cycle, unable to stop chasing that elusive initial high. You might visualize the telltale signs: the gaunt faces, the dilated pupils, the constant fidgeting. The initial feelings of grandeur and clarity give way to paranoia, a pervasive sense of unease that twists reality. Imagine the terror as individuals begin to experience vivid, disturbing hallucinations, a phenomenon often described as cocaine bugs, the horrifying sensation of insects crawling beneath their skin, prompting desperate, frantic scratching. The miracle drug had revealed its terrifying underbelly. Even Sigmund Freud, who had so ardently championed cocaine as a panacea, would bear witness to its destructive power, a cruel twist of fate that deeply scarred him. You can almost feel the weight of his despair as he watched his cherished friend, Ernst von Fleischl-Marxow, descend into the terrifying depths of cocaine psychosis, ultimately succumbing to its ravages. The dream of a miracle drug collapsed under the crushing weight of its own false promise, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and broken hopes. But the narrative surrounding cocaine wasn't just one of medical disillusionment. It was also tragically interwoven with the dark threads of societal prejudice. You are transported to America, where sensational newspaper headlines began to scream with alarmist pronouncements. Imagine the stark black text splashed across the page stories of cocaine-crazed Negroes immune to bullets. This was not simply reporting. It was a deliberate fabrication, a grotesque exaggeration fueled by deeply entrenched racism and a desire to control certain segments of the population. The false narrative suggested that cocaine granted superhuman strength and an imperviousness to pain, making black men particularly dangerous when under its influence. You can almost feel the collective fear and panic that these inflammatory stories deliberately ignited. This fear, often baseless and driven by racial bias, quickly birthed a powerful movement for legal intervention. The public outcry, amplified by these horrifying tales, demanded action. And so, in 1914, a landmark piece of legislation was enacted, the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act. This law fundamentally changed the legal status of cocaine, effectively locking it behind bureaucratic bars, no longer easily accessible in pharmacies or tonics. It was now officially classified as a dangerous narcotic, subject to strict regulation and control. With this act, cocaine was, in essence, exiled from the legitimate medical and social spheres. You might envision it slipping quietly into the shadows, no longer a celebrated elixir, but a forbidden substance. It didn't disappear. However, it simply went underground, finding new pathways, new spaces where its intoxicating allure could still be found. The drug, once brought to light by science, was now pushed into the darkness, ready to find new disciples in the clandestine corners of society, continuing its silent, destructive journey. The initial promise of salvation had morphed into a quiet curse, lingering unseen, waiting for its next moment to emerge. You step now into the vibrant, exhilarating, and sometimes shadowy world of the 1920s, an era shimmering with defiance and a craving for novelty. The whispers of the Harrison Act had pushed cocaine out of the light. But prohibition, ironically, created a fertile ground for its resurgence. Imagine the hidden entrances to speakeasies, the muffled sounds of jazz music filtering through closed doors, the illicit thrill of breaking the rules. Here, in the clandestine heart of the jazz age, cocaine found a new identity, a symbol of rebellion, a shimmering, crystal form of liberation. You can almost hear the seductive rhythms of a trumpet, the smooth glide of a saxophone, mingling with the hushed conversations and clinking ice in these secret clubs. Jazz musicians, their fingers flying across keys and strings, often found a fleeting, intense energy in its embrace. Poets, seeking to unlock new streams of consciousness, would pass small vials of the white powder among themselves like a shared communion, a sacrament of creativity and abandon. Flappers, with their bobbed hair and daring short dresses, emblematic of a new freedom, would partake, finding a fleeting burst of confidence and effervescence on the dance floor. It was a secret handshake, a badge of belonging to a sophisticated, daring subculture. The allure of cocaine also cast its shimmering spell over the burgeoning dream factory of Hollywood. You might envision the intense, almost artificial glow of early film sets, the long hours under hot lights, the relentless pressure to perform, to charm, to embody glamour. Cocaine offered a quick, potent solution to the demands of endless nights and grueling schedules. It promised boundless energy, heightened focus, and an illusion of invincibility, fueling the glamorous, yet often hollow, lives of the stars. It allowed them to maintain the dazzling facade, to burn brightly, albeit briefly. Yet, This dazzling fire carried with it a devastating cost. The glitter began to fade, revealing the tragic human toll. You can almost feel the collective gasp of scandal and sorrow when the news broke the beloved actor Wallace Reed, a dashing matinee idol, succumbed to the grip of addiction. His death sent shockwaves through the industry, threatening to expose the darker underbelly of Hollywood glamour. The studios, desperate to protect their carefully constructed image and maintain public trust, swiftly moved to bury the scandal. They implemented the infamous Hays Code, a set of strict moral guidelines designed to censor film content and, implicitly, to clean up the perceived debauchery of the industry itself. But while Hollywood tried to sanitize its image, cocaine itself did not vanish. It merely retreated further into the shadows, becoming even more exclusive. You might imagine it finding new homes in smoky, dimly lit clubs where secrets were exchanged in hushed tones, and in the opulent, private powder rooms of grand mansions. It transformed into a discreet indulgence for the privileged few, a symbol of illicit luxury. The small, ornate silver spoons, once used for sugar or snuff, became quiet conduits for this forbidden powder. The drug, once openly available, now existed in an underground economy, whispered about, sought after, and discreetly consumed by those who could afford its hidden price. It became a dangerous, tantalizing secret, passed from hand to hand in hushed transactions, its presence a knowing wink among the wealthy and the daring. The rebellion of the Jazz Age, fueled in part by this crystalline delight, showcased cocaine's enduring power to attract, to corrupt, and to adapt, patiently waiting for its next transformation. The era closed, leaving behind the faint, lingering scent of perfume, stale smoke, and an unspoken promise of illicit thrill, a prelude to even darker chapters. You journey now, carried by the invisible currents of trade and ambition, southward once more, returning to the very heartland of the coca plant. The mid-20th century marked a significant pivot, as the subtle, white trail of cocaine began to reshape entire landscapes. The demand, though often hidden, was growing steadily, pulling the industry back to its source. The quiet whispers of illicit trade were slowly, inexorably gathering strength, poised to erupt into a deafening roar. In the rugged, often overlooked regions of Chile, a crucial transformation began. You might envision makeshift laboratories, hidden deep within remote valleys, where ingenious smugglers discovered a new, more efficient method. They learned to process coca leaves into a crude, potent intermediate product known as pasta base. This wasn't the refined, elegant powder of European chemists. It was a raw, powerful extract, ready for further refinement. This innovation was a game changer, simplifying the initial stages of production and setting the stage for industrial-scale operations. Then, history intervened with a brutal hand. Pinochet's coup in Chile created a climate of instability and fear. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the desperate scramble for survival. Many of these nascent drug producers, seeking refuge and new opportunities, fled north, crossing borders into Colombia. This migration proved to be a pivotal moment, a confluence of opportunity and ambition that would forever alter the global drug landscape. It was in Colombia that one man, a figure of almost mythical proportions, seized control of this burgeoning enterprise and transformed it into an empire, Pablo Escobar. You might envision him emerging from the chaos, a charismatic and ruthless force of nature. He didn't just deal drugs. He built an entire parallel state, establishing the infamous Medellin cartel. This wasn't merely a criminal organization. It was an army, a vast enterprise fueled by billions of dollars flowing from the insatiable demand for cocaine. Imagine the sheer scale of his operations' private airfields, fleets of planes, entire networks of production and distribution, all protected by legions of loyal, often brutal, enforcers. The economic power he wielded was staggering, allowing him to challenge the very authority of the state. Yet, even within this burgeoning empire, competition was fierce. You can almost feel the tension, the palpable rivalry. A contrasting power emerged in the form of the Cali cartel. Unlike Escobar's flamboyant and often violent approach, the Cali cartel operated with a chilling corporate efficiency. You might picture their leaders in tailored suits, conducting business like multinational executives, far removed from the public spectacle of Escobar. They were quiet, professional, and sought to remain untouchable, preferring bribery and infiltration over open warfare. Their business model was a masterclass in clandestine management, meticulously controlling every aspect of their operation with cold precision. The serene, spiritual tranquility of the Andes, once echoing with ancient prayers and the gentle rustle of leaves, was brutally shattered. You can almost hear the roar of airplanes carrying illicit cargo, the bubbling acid barrels used for processing, and the chilling crackle of gunfire echoing through the mountains. What was once a sacred, venerated leaf, a gift from the gods, had been industrialized, transformed into a commodity of immense global value, a currency of corruption and violence. The quiet spiritual connection had been replaced by the brutal efficiency of a criminal industry, its tendrils beginning to spread across continents, forever altering the world's perception of this ancient plant. You sense the shifting political winds now, a palpable declaration of intent echoing from the most powerful nation in the world, the United States. Witnessing the escalating scale and violence of the emerging cartels. Formally declared war on drugs, you might envision the solemn pronouncements, the determined faces of politicians, the mobilization of resources aimed at combating this pervasive threat. It was a war unlike any other, fought not against a conventional army, but against a decentralized, elusive enemy, a powder and the vast, intricate networks that brought it to market. One of the primary battlegrounds was the very source of the problem, the coca fields themselves. You can almost hear the droning sound of planes flying low over the lush, green Andean landscape. From these aircraft, herbicide was sprayed indiscriminately, raining down poison over vast expanses of coca crops. Imagine the stark contrast, the vibrant green turning to withered brown, the very earth crying out under the chemical assault. But this act of eradication came with a devastating cost. The chemicals didn't just kill coca plants, they poisoned the land, contaminated water sources, and sickened the very people who lived and worked in these remote regions, often small farmers caught in the crossfire. It was a scorched earth policy with far-reaching and often tragic consequences for innocent communities. Despite these efforts, the war raged on, marked by both strategic victories and unintended consequences. You might recall the dramatic headlines of December 1993 when the infamous Pablo Escobar, the charismatic and brutal king of the Medellin cartel, finally fell, shot down on a rooftop in Medellin. His demise was hailed as a monumental triumph, a significant blow to the heart of the drug empire. Soon after, The more discreet but equally powerful Cali cartel also began to crumble under intense international pressure and law enforcement efforts. The initial feeling was one of overwhelming victory, a sense that the tide had turned. But you soon realized that this victory was, in many ways, an illusion, a temporary clearing in a storm that would quickly regroup. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the illicit drug trade proved no different. As the Colombian cartels weakened, a new power began to emerge, quietly and decisively. From the north, the Mexican cartels. These groups, once primarily serving as couriers, facilitating the movement of drugs across the border, now seized the opportunity to control the entire supply chain. Imagine the subtle shift in power, the calculated moves of ambitious individuals stepping into the void. A figure named Felix Gallardo, with shrewd cunning, managed to unite many of these disparate smuggling operations, forging them into a formidable entity known as the Guadalajara cartel. This marked a new era of consolidation and power. Though this cartel would eventually fragment, its legacy was profound. It split into powerful successor organizations, including the Tijuana cartel, the Juarez cartel, and the now infamous Sinaloa cartel. The White Empire, seemingly vanquished in Colombia, had simply shifted its capital. You can almost sense the new center of gravity, the focus of power moving across borders. The war on drugs, in its relentless pursuit of victory, had indeed killed kings, but in doing so, it had inadvertently crowned new ones. The landscape of organized crime had merely evolved, becoming more complex, more brutal, and arguably, even more deeply entrenched. The fight continued, but the enemy had morphed, proving far more resilient and adaptable than anyone had anticipated, laying the groundwork for even darker chapters to unfold. You observe a chilling evolution now, a quiet but profound transformation in the nature of power. By the early 2000s, the cartels, particularly those in Mexico, no longer confined themselves to the shadows. They began to emerge, not just as criminal organizations, but as an insidious, parallel form of government. You can almost feel the oppressive weight of their influence, seeping into every aspect of daily life in certain regions. In Mexico, entire cities began to bow to their authority, not always out of loyalty, but often out of fear and necessity. Imagine living in a community where the local government's reach is tenuous, but the cartel's presence is undeniable and absolute. They began to fulfill roles traditionally reserved for the state. You might see new roads being paved, not by municipal authorities, but by cartel money and muscle. Schools, essential for the future of any community, were sometimes built or funded by these illicit empires, offering a veneer of benevolence, even as their true power was rooted in violence. Yet, this veneer was often shattered by horrific acts of brutality, a clear demonstration of their ultimate authority. Judges, journalists, politicians, anyone who dared to challenge their dominion, faced swift and often gruesome retribution. You can almost hear the chilling echoes of their threats, the silent intimidation that permeated society. The cartels didn't just bribe, they commanded. They didn't just smuggle, they ruled. The stark reality of this power came to a terrifying head in 2019. You might recall the disbelief, the shock, as news broke of an unprecedented event in the city of Culiacan, the heartland of the Sinaloa cartel. Heavily armed gunmen, loyal to the cartel, surrounded the city, transforming it into a war zone. Their demand was unequivocal: the release of Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of the infamous drug lord El Chapo, who had been captured by government forces. Imagine the chaos, the fear, the sounds of intense gunfire echoing through the streets. The Mexican state, faced with an overwhelming display of force and the potential for catastrophic civilian casualties, found itself in an impossible position. For one extraordinary, terrifying day, the government effectively surrendered. You witnessed the painful capitulation, the decision to release Guzman Lopez to prevent further bloodshed. This event was a stark, undeniable demonstration of who truly held power in that moment, in that place. The chilling mantra of the cartels, plata o plomo, silver or lead, became terrifyingly real. You either accepted their bribes, bowed to their will, and became complicit, or you faced their lethal bullets. The line between legitimate government and criminal enterprise, once distinct, dissolved into a haze of smoke and fear. The apparatus of the state, its police, its military, its judiciary found itself either co-opted, intimidated, or simply outmaneuvered by the immense wealth and ruthlessness of these drug empires. The sacred leaf had now reached its most corrupted form, a commodity so powerful, so lucrative, that it could fund and sustain entire shadow governments, capable of challenging and even dictating terms to sovereign nations. You are left with the unsettling realization that the power of the powder had transcended mere individual addiction. It had become an unseen force, shaping national destinies and blurring the very definition of authority, leaving a legacy of fear and complicity in its wake. You follow the intricate pathways now, tracing the white vein of cocaine as it expands far beyond the Americas, seeking new territories to saturate, with the American market, though still immense, becoming increasingly competitive and saturated. The relentless engines of the drug trade turned their gaze across the Atlantic. Europe became the next major host, a continent ripe for its insidious embrace, its affluent societies offering fertile ground for consumption. Imagine the complex choreography of global smuggling Colombian producers, masters of their craft, forging new alliances. They partnered with powerful, deeply entrenched criminal organizations in Europe, most notably Italy's 'Ndrangheta. You can almost hear the hushed conversations, the clandestine agreements made in remote villas or bustling port cities. This was a strategic alliance, combining the production expertise of South America with the sophisticated logistical networks and deep-seated corruption of European organized crime. The entry points became crucial arteries in this global network. You might envision the massive container ships docking in key European ports, Gioia Tauro in Italy, a strategic gateway into the continent, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, a colossal hub for international trade, and Antwerp in Belgium, another vital nexus. Through these immense ports, tons upon tons of cocaine were smuggled, hidden within legitimate cargo, slipping past inspections, flooding the continent with its addictive allure. The sheer scale of these operations is staggering, transforming quiet harbors into unwitting conduits for illicit wealth. As the flow intensified, the global web extended its reach, seeking ever more creative and often devastating transit hubs. West Africa, strategically positioned between South America and Europe, became a critical corridor. You might picture the dusty, bustling ports and remote airstrips of countries like Guinea-Bissau, Nigeria, and Ghana. Here, fragile governments and struggling economies presented a tragic vulnerability. Bribes, often vast sums of cash, became a potent tool, capable of buying the complicity of entire government structures, from port officials to high-ranking politicians. Imagine the ease with which private jets, laden with cocaine, could land on secluded airstrips, their illicit cargo then broken down and transported northward. This transformed West African nations into unwilling staging grounds, their institutions corrupted, their societies destabilized by the influx of drug money and its accompanying violence. The very fabric of these nations began to fray under the pressure of this illicit trade, leaving behind a legacy of endemic corruption and shattered trust. Cocaine, by this point, was no longer merely a drug in the traditional sense. It had evolved into a liquid form of currency, a pervasive global economy. You can almost visualize its relentless journey from the remote, lush jungles of South America, where the leaf was harvested, across vast oceans, hidden within containers, through African ports, greasing the wheels of corruption, and finally, into the glittering, often hedonistic clubs of Europe, and onto the anonymous streets of northern cities. It became a powerful, invisible force, driving immense wealth, fueling corruption on an unprecedented scale, and touching countless lives across continents. The powder had truly completed its transformation, not just into an object of addiction, but into a central pillar of a shadow global economy. Its influence felt in every corner of the world. You arrive now at the chilling culmination of this long, winding journey, a chapter where the story takes a darker, more insidious turn. Just when you might think the trajectory of cocaine had reached its peak, a new, more lethal specter emerged from the shadows: fentanyl. Imagine the sterile coldness of a laboratory, a stark contrast to the ancient Andean fields, as this synthetic opioid, cheaper and exponentially deadlier, was created. It slipped into the world of cocaine like a ghost, an unseen, silent predator. The motivation was chillingly pragmatic profit. Mexican cartels, ever adaptable and ruthless, discovered that by mixing fentanyl into their cocaine supply, they could achieve a stronger, faster, and cheaper high. You can almost hear the quiet hum of clandestine operations, the precise measurements of deadly powders. A few grains of fentanyl, an amount so small it's almost invisible, could be enough to kill. The users, often seeking only the familiar rush of cocaine, never knew they were playing a game of Russian roulette, until they stopped breathing. Imagine the sudden, unexpected silence in a room, the swift, brutal finality of an overdose. The party drug had been transformed into a silent assassin. The overdose crisis soared, claiming an unthinkable toll. You might hear the somber statistics, counting past 100,000 deaths a year in the U.S. alone, each number representing a shattered life, a grieving family. This wasn't merely addiction anymore. It was extinction. The pursuit of pleasure had been hijacked, becoming a direct path to an untimely end. From its origins as a divine leaf, revered by ancient civilizations, to this chemical death, the powder had completed its tragic, corrupted circle. You reflect on the journey from the sun-drenched peaks where it brought spiritual clarity and physical endurance, to the cold, clinical laboratories where it was isolated for scientific understanding. From the celebratory tonics and the promises of a miracle cure, to the roaring defiance of the Jazz Age, and then to the brutal empires of the cartels, carving out their territories with violence and corruption. And now, finally, to its ultimate, betraying form, a lethal cocktail designed for maximum profit, heedless of the human cost. You can almost taste the bitter legacy left behind. Each gram of this powder, in its long, complex journey, carries a devastating price. It costs a segment of a forest, cleared for cultivation. It poisons a river, tainted by the chemicals of processing. It demands a bribe, corrupting institutions and individuals. And most tragically, it costs a life, countless lives, from the fields to the streets. It funds corruption that saps the strength of nations, fuels deforestation that scars the planet, and spreads despair that crushes the human spirit. From the sacred Incan temples, where it was an offering to the gods, to the polished Hollywood mirrors, where it served fleeting glamour. From the makeshift jungle labs, reeking of chemicals, to the sterile morgues, holding its silent victims. The story of cocaine is ultimately the story of human hunger, a relentless yearning for energy, for control, for escape from the mundane and the painful. It promised a taste of godhood, a fleeting glimpse of ecstasy and boundless potential. But in the end, it delivered only ghosts, the ghosts of lost lives, broken dreams, and corrupted souls. And still, the world continues to inhale its illusion, one line at a time, whispering its ancient, dangerous name into the modern night, forever bound to its captivating, destructive power. You are standing at the precipice of a profound quiet, an imagined stillness. Before you, a shimmering veil of possibility, a promise whispered on the breeze of chemical dreams. It speaks of pure happiness, an unburdened bliss so potent, so utterly encompassing, that in its ethereal glow, all else seems to fade into irrelevance. This is the initial siren song of fentanyl, a melody so deeply resonant with the yearning heart that it compels an abandonment of all that was once held dear. You are drawn to it, not by force, but by an almost irresistible pull, echoing your deepest, most primal desires for solace. Imagine, for a moment, a pain that has long resided within you, perhaps a physical ache that has dulled the vibrancy of your days, or a more insidious, unseen suffering, a constant thrum of anxiety, a gnawing loneliness that whispers in the quiet corners of your mind. Now, picture a single, delicate dose, dissolving into your very being, in a heartbeat, in a breath. That pain, that fear, that loneliness, it simply evaporates. It doesn't just recede or dull, it is utterly erased, as if it never existed. The world, once sharp with its edges of suffering, softens into a hazy, warm embrace. You are cradled in an unparalleled peace, a silence so complete it feels sacred. But as you bask in this profound calm, a subtle discord might begin to hum beneath the surface of this newfound tranquility. This peace, you subtly discern, isn't truly real. It is a masterful, intricate illusion, a chemical fabrication of control. Your mind perceives dominion over your suffering, a mastery over the chaos of your inner world. Yet it is merely a clever trick of chemistry, an engineered quietude. You are not escaping life's profound complexities. You are, instead, slowly, imperceptibly, dissolving into a profound nothingness. It's a fading, a lessening of your own vibrant essence, masked by the most seductive feeling of all. No one, truly, intends to embark on a path of self-destruction. This is not a conscious choice for ruin. Instead, you merely wish to cease hurting. You long for a reprieve, a moment of respite from the relentless drumbeat of internal anguish. It's a desire as old as humanity itself, the desperate search for an end to pain. Yet, what you often discover, in this quest for a cessation of suffering, is not the promised heaven, not the gentle, sun-drenched meadow of everlasting peace. Instead, you find yourself within a beautifully constructed trap, exquisitely scented with the subtle, intoxicating perfume of poppies, a scent that speaks of both beauty and oblivion. Fentanyl, in this intricate dance of chemistry and human yearning, stands as one of existence's sweetest, yet most profoundly cruel. It offers a dream, vivid and enticing, but ultimately, it is a dream that consumes the dreamer. You exist within a delicate balance, an intricate dance choreographed by two ancient, elemental forces that have guided life since its very genesis. These are the twin gods of your existence, pain and pleasure. Imagine them not as distant, unfeeling deities, but as constant, intimate companions, whispering always, guiding your every breath, every instinct, every choice. They are the architects of your survival, the sculptors of your experience, ceaselessly at work within the deep, silent chambers of your being. Pain, in its raw, undeniable form, is the stern, vigilant guardian. It is the sharp sting of a thorn, the burning heat of an open flame, the deep ache of a tired muscle. It is designed to keep you alive, to alert you to danger, to teach you the boundaries of your physical form. Without its urgent warnings, you would stumble blindly into harm, oblivious to the threats that surround you. It demands attention, a swift response, a turning away from peril. Yet, it also possesses a more subtle, internal voice, the pang of hunger reminding you to seek nourishment, the emotional sting of loneliness urging you toward connection. It is, in essence, a profound teacher, ensuring the continuation of your delicate thread of life. And then, there is pleasure, the soft, inviting murmur, the gentle hand that guides you towards continuation. It is the warmth of a comforting embrace, the sweet taste of ripe fruit, the satisfying relief of thirst quenched. Pleasure gives you reasons to stay, reasons to endure, reasons to reach out and create and nurture. It encourages you towards life-sustaining actions, rewarding you with feelings of contentment, joy, and deep satisfaction. It is the gentle current that propels you forward, imbuing existence with richness and meaning, making the effort of survival not just necessary, but deeply desirable. Remarkably, these two powerful, seemingly opposing forces do not operate in separate realms within your being. They communicate through the same nervous doorway, a singular, intricate gateway known as the opioid receptor. Picture this receptor as a beautifully carved archway, a portal within the very fabric of your nervous system. Both the urgent cries of pain and the sweet melodies of pleasure must pass through this same elegant entrance to be fully experienced and interpreted by your consciousness. It is a shared domain, a testament to the profound interconnectedness of your internal world. Nature, in her infinite wisdom, designed this doorway with exquisite precision, allowing a careful, modulated flow. She designed a delicate balance. Consider the profound agony of childbirth, a searing, all-consuming pain that pushes your very limits. Yet, almost magically, as the pain subsides, it doesn't simply disappear. It transforms, softening, melting into an overwhelming, unconditional love for the new life held in your arms. Or recall the intense exhaustion after a long, arduous hunt, where every muscle screams with fatigue. This physical depletion, once the task is complete, often gives way to a profound sense of euphoria, a deep satisfaction of accomplishment, the joy of providing and surviving. These are natural rhythms, perfect examples of how the line between agony and bliss can gently blur and transform, serving life's grand design, preserving its delicate dance. Humanity, however, with its boundless ingenuity and its equally boundless capacity for seeking comfort, has often twisted this natural, sacred balance. You have learned, through the intricate tapestry of chemical discovery, how to open that delicate nervous door too wide, to pry it open with unnatural force. In doing so, you deliberately erase the subtle, life-affirming boundary between agony and bliss. You seek to feel the profound sensations of life, the joy, the peace, the euphoria, but without actually living through the challenges, the struggles, the effort, the growth that truly defines human experience. It is a profound shortcut, an attempt to bypass the very essence of existence, to taste the fruit without tending the tree. And in this audacious attempt, a new kind of imbalance is born, one that promises freedom but often delivers a profound and silent captivity. Within you, an intricate system holds the keys to that nervous doorway, the opioid receptor. Nature, in her quiet wisdom, provided the first, most gentle of these keys, your own endorphins. Imagine them as small, shimmering keys, forged from the softest moonlight, designed to turn with a delicate, deliberate touch. They are subtle. Their effects are brief, like the fleeting scent of jasmine on a summer evening. They offer a gentle lullaby, a soft caress of comfort after exertion, a quiet moment of peace when you are truly at rest. They are your body's natural pain relievers, your internal wellspring of mild contentment, designed to soothe and to motivate, but always within the bounds of harmony. They open the door just wide enough, for just long enough, to allow a natural flow, a transient sense of well-being, before gently receding. But then, humanity, in its ceaseless quest for alleviating suffering, began to forge other keys. These are the powerful substances you know as heroin, morphine, oxycodone. Picture these not as soft keys of moonlight, but as keys hammered from iron, brutal in their strength, impatient in their turning. They are designed to force the lock, to twist it open with an intensity far beyond nature's subtle touch. When you introduce these into your system, they rush to that nervous door, pushing it wide, flooding your being with sensations that are undeniably powerful, undoubtedly seductive. They silence the pain with an almost overwhelming force, replacing it with a profound, almost dizzying wave of synthetic calm. They are stronger, longer lasting, more insistent than any endorphin. They promise a sustained escape, a more robust turning of the lock. But with their strength comes a certain harshness, a deliberate disruption of the natural rhythm. They open the door, yes, but they strain its hinges, testing its limits. And then there is the final key, a master key forged not of iron, but of something far more potent, more insidious. This is fentanyl. Imagine it as a key so exquisitely tiny, so perfectly crafted, that it doesn't just turn the lock, it shatters the lock itself. It doesn't just open the door, it blasts it open, tearing through the intricate mechanisms with an almost silent, terrifying efficiency. It is infinitesimally small, a ghost in the machine, allowing it to cross the brain's protective barrier, that carefully guarded sanctuary of the brain, with an unprecedented ease, like a wisp of smoke passing through solid stone. It bypasses defenses, ignores warnings, and slips into the most sacred chambers of your mind. Once this final key is inside, once it has breached the inner sanctum, its effect is not a gentle unlocking, nor even a forceful turning. It is an explosion. It detonates every pleasure switch, every joy circuit, every contentment pathway within your brain, simultaneously, in one blinding, overwhelming flash. The world, once vibrant and rich with detail, turns utterly silent. The cacophony of your anxieties, the persistent whispers of your pain, the endless chatter of your thoughts, all cease instantly. Your physical body, once a collection of distinct sensations and boundaries, begins to melt, to dissolve into an ethereal, formless warmth. And your mind, that bustling center of consciousness, fades to an intense, pure white, an absolute blankness where no thought, no concern, no self exists. What feels, in that profound moment, like the most exquisite, liberating peace you have ever known, is not a return to balance. It is not an awakening. It is, you slowly begin to understand, the very first terrifying sign of ruin. It is the beginning of a profound unmaking, a silent erasure, masked by the most powerful, most seductive sensation imaginable. This ultimate key, designed to unlock absolute bliss, ultimately unlocks only the door to profound emptiness. You have now stepped into the heart of an experience so profound, so utterly overwhelming. It defies the ordinary lexicon of human feeling. This is what it means to be flooded, not merely with light, but with an internal supernova of bliss. Picture it a sudden, brilliant expansion within your mind, as if a star has ignited in the deepest core of your being. Every single nerve, from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head, begins to sing with an intense, pervasive warmth. A pure, incandescent glow that permeates your entire existence. There is no corner of you left untouched, no shadow where this light cannot reach. In this blazing internal landscape, every vestige of pain, every memory of suffering, utterly dissolves. It doesn't just fade, it dissipates, disintegrates into nothingness, leaving behind only the shimmering embers of this new, all-consuming light. And with the dissolution of pain, something else remarkable occurs. Time itself seems to stop. The relentless march of moments, the anxious anticipation of the future, the lingering regrets of the past, all vanish. You exist in an eternal present, a timeless expanse where only this feeling, this pure, unadulterated sensation, holds dominion. Even the most fundamental act, the very rhythm of your breath, ceases to be an unconscious necessity and becomes, instead, a sacred act, a slow, deliberate inhale and exhale that feels charged with profound meaning, a connection to something infinite. For a few fleeting hours, you are lifted, suspended in an ethereal realm of synthetic serenity. You float, unmoored from earthly concerns, untouched by gravity or the mundane realities of the world. In this heightened state, Every ordinary sensation is transformed, elevated to an almost divine experience. The simple, robust flavor of coffee, a daily ritual, now tastes utterly divine, a symphony of notes you never perceived before. The intricate patterns of music, once merely pleasant, now sound holy, resonating deep within your soul, revealing harmonies and depths previously unheard. And the profound, complex emotion of love, once felt in its varied human forms, now feels infinite, boundless, an overwhelming torrent that transcends all personal boundaries. You are connected to everything, boundless, at peace. Yet, even in this transcendent state, a profound and immutable truth begins to subtly assert itself. Your magnificent human brain, this intricate, delicate instrument of consciousness, is simply not built to contain infinity. It is designed for limits, for cycles, for the beautiful, nuanced interplay of opposing forces. It cannot sustain such an overwhelming, constant cascade of pure, unadulterated joy. It fractures, not violently, but subtly, under the sheer weight of its own engineered bliss. The very mechanisms designed to create and interpret pleasure begin to strain, to unravel, to lose their delicate calibration in the face of such a relentless onslaught. And inevitably, as all supernovas must, this blazing internal light begins to fade. The incredible, all-encompassing high recedes, slowly at first, then more rapidly, like a tide pulling back from the shore. And as it withdraws, reality, once vibrant and imbued with a divine glow, now turns desolate. It becomes gray, muted, utterly tasteless. The rich tapestry of life, once so exquisitely rendered, now feels flat, devoid of flavor, drained of all its inherent color. What was once ordinary, perhaps even beautiful, now feels like a profound disappointment. You try, with every fiber of your being, to climb back up to that dazzling zenith, to recapture that sublime feeling, that boundless light. But it is an impossible ascent. You find, to your profound despair, that your wings, once spread wide and strong in the synthetic currents of joy, are now gone. They have been burned away, not by external fire, but by the very intensity of the light you once sought. You are left grounded, heavier, and more acutely aware of the absence than ever before, condemned to remember a perfection that can no longer be reached. You find yourself in a new, subtly agonizing landscape, one defined not by what is present, but by what is profoundly, acutely absent. After that initial, breathtaking high, that supernova of bliss, an insidious and unrelenting curse descends upon your perception, the curse of comparison. Nothing, you realize with a sinking heart, can ever feel truly good enough again. The bar has been set, not just high, but impossibly high, by a momentary, fabricated perfection. Consider the simple, grounding rituals of your life. The comforting warmth of your morning coffee, once a gentle awakening, now tastes dull, flat, devoid of its former depth and nuance. The spontaneous, joyous sound of laughter from a friend or a loved one, once a bright chime in your world, now rings hollow, lacking genuine resonance, failing to penetrate the pervasive veil of emptiness that has settled around you. Even the most intimate, reassuring gesture, a soft hug, a gentle touch from someone you cherish, now feels distant, a mere physical contact that cannot bridge the vast chasm between your current reality and that remembered ultimate sensation. It is as if, for a brief, fleeting moment, you touched the very fabric of heaven itself. You ascended to an unimaginable peak of sensation, experienced a purity of bliss that your everyday existence could never hope to replicate. And once you have glimpsed that divine perfection, everything else, every ordinary joy, every subtle pleasure, every simple comfort, feels like dirt beneath your feet. It is not that these things have inherently changed, but your internal metric, your scale of experience, has been irrevocably skewed. The mundane, the real, the human, all pale in comparison to the blinding intensity of that synthetic ecstasy. Your brain, that remarkable organ of memory and comparison, now ceaselessly contrasts every subsequent moment, every new experience, with that first explosive encounter with absolute bliss. And every single time, it loses. Every single time, your current reality falls short. The ordinary becomes unbearable. The good becomes inadequate. And the beautiful becomes merely a faint imitation. This constant, internal ledger of disappointment creates a relentless yearning, a profound sense of loss for something that was never truly yours to begin with. You are no longer chasing joy, not in its true, vibrant, complex forms. Instead, you are desperately, tirelessly chasing a memory. You are pursuing the ghost of a feeling, the echo of a perfection that recedes further with every attempt to grasp it. Each new dose, each subsequent attempt to recapture that initial, overwhelming sensation, becomes a weaker, more fragile echo of the first. The brilliance dims, the warmth cools, the silence is less profound. The experience, though still powerful, can never quite reach the zenith of that inaugural moment. Your system, once exquisitely sensitive, has already adapted, already begun to build a tolerance to the very sensation it craves. And in this tragic pursuit, pleasure itself, the very thing you sought, transforms into a profound punishment. You are trapped in a cruel and relentless cycle of longing, forever reaching for what can never truly return. Each hit, each injection, each breath of that chemical promise offers only a fleeting, diminished shadow of the original glory, leaving you more deeply entrenched in the aching absence, more acutely aware of the gulf between what was felt and what now is. This chase becomes not an ascent, but a slow, agonizing descent, propelled by the haunting, beautiful memory of an impossible heaven. And so, the inevitable descent begins. The drug, having run its course, begins its retreat from the delicate architecture of your being. And as it leaves, as its artificial presence slowly dissipates, the silence it brought is ripped away, replaced by an excruciating, multiplied return of pain. It is not merely the original pain returning. It is amplified, distorted, 1,000 tiny knives twisting within every fiber of your being. This is the supernova of pain, a stark and brutal counterpoint to the brief supernova of bliss you once knew. You feel your skin begin to crawl, an unbearable sensation as if countless insects are beneath its surface, ceaselessly moving, pricking, irritating. It is a torment that no amount of scratching or shifting can alleviate. A deep, bone-aching cold settles in your very marrow, a profound fatigue that makes every movement an agonizing effort. Your muscles knot, spasm, and cramp, refusing to find a comfortable resting place. Your heart, once lulled into a synthetic calm, now races with a terrifying, erratic panic, hammering against your ribs as if desperate to escape your body. A profound sense of dread washes over you, an anxiety so intense it feels like a physical presence, squeezing your chest, stealing your breath. Every fear you have ever buried, every regret you have ever pushed down into the deepest recesses of your mind, comes roaring back with a terrifying ferocity. The quiet demons you thought you had vanquished, the anxieties you believed had dissolved, now emerge from the shadows, magnified, relentless, screaming their accusations and their terrors into your consciousness. Your mind becomes a relentless echo chamber of your deepest insecurities, your most profound sorrows. There is no escape, no refuge from this internal cacophony. Sleep, once a gentle balm, a nightly reprieve, becomes an impossible dream. Your body writhes, your mind races, your senses are overwhelmed. The concept of peace, that longed-for state, seems utterly extinct, a faded memory from another life. You are trapped in a waking nightmare, an unending loop of physical and psychological torment. Every nerve ending in your body screams, a continuous, agonizing cry for relief, for an end to the unbearable sensations. Your mind, battered and exhausted, begs for mercy, for just a moment of quiet, a single breath of reprieve from the relentless onslaught. This is the precipice of a profound choice, a terrifying crossroads. You know, deep in your ravaged core, that this hellish state can last for what feels like an eternity, perhaps 2 long, agonizing weeks of unrelenting torture, a purgatory of pain and despair. Or, you know there is another way, a swift, decisive path to make it all stop. One needle, one tiny, almost imperceptible prick, and the torment, the screaming, the unbearable anguish will recede once more. Every addict, caught in this cruel vice, knows the answer. In that moment of utter desperation, facing the unrelenting, brutal reality of withdrawal, the choice is clear, immediate, and utterly compelling. You choose the needle. You choose the fleeting, temporary cessation of pain, even knowing the profound cost, even understanding that it merely postpones the inevitable, that it digs the grave a little deeper. The promise of quiet, however brief, however illusory, is simply too powerful to resist when confronted with such a profound, all-consuming supernova of pain. You have now reached a profound, almost imperceptible turning point, a critical juncture where the very fabric of your being shifts. Addiction, in its full, insidious embrace, is complete. What was once a series of choices, however desperate or misguided, has now become an unthinking, undeniable reflex. The delicate machinery of free will, once capable of weighing options and charting a course, has been overridden, replaced by an automatic, primal urge that bypasses all rational thought. Your actions are no longer driven by conscious decision, but by an irresistible, ingrained compulsion. The pursuit has changed. 2. You no longer seek the exhilarating highs, the blinding supernova of euphoria that initially captivated you. That dazzling light has long since dimmed, its memory a painful echo. Instead, your quest has narrowed, simplified. Becoming far more desperate and elemental, you seek only quiet. You yearn for the cessation of the agonizing clamor, the relentless screaming of withdrawal, the ceaseless thrum of internal pain. There are no more dizzying peaks, no more transcendent moments of bliss. there is only the craving for temporary stillness, a brief, fragile reprieve from the storm that rages within. Fentanyl, once a seductive lover promising boundless joy, has transformed. It is no longer an escape. It has become a harsh, demanding warden, holding you captive within the confines of its potent chemistry. Each hit, each desperate injection, is no longer a step towards freedom or happiness. It is merely a temporary parole, a brief suspension of sentence, before the inevitable return to confinement. The substance dictates your rhythm, controls your days, shapes your very existence. You are no longer master of your own desires. You are beholden to its relentless demands. Every single hit now carries a false promise, a whispered lie that repeats itself endlessly in the chambers of your mind. Just one more time. Just one more. And then you'll stop. Just one more. And then you'll find the strength. Just one more. And then the pain will truly be gone. But you know, deep down, even as you yield to the compulsion, that every one more is not a step towards liberation, but a deeper plunge into the abyss. Each subsequent dose, each yielding to the reflex, digs the grave of your former self a little deeper, eroding another layer of your life, another piece of your potential. And in this profound, relentless cycle, as the weight of your captivity grows heavier, as the light of hope dims, a chilling thought might begin to emerge, subtly, insidiously. Death, once a terrifying unknown, now begins to look like something else entirely. It starts to appear in the quiet, desperate moments between doses, not as an end, but as a potential rest. It whispers a final promise of silence, of true, everlasting peace, a cessation of all longing, all pain, all struggle. It becomes, in the distorted mirror of addiction, the ultimate, albeit tragic, form of escape. You stand now before the stark, unvarnished truth of fentanyl's raw power, stripped of any lingering romanticism. Imagine a substance so potent, so concentrated, that it eclipses even its formidable predecessors. It is, to put it plainly, 50 times stronger than heroin, 50 times the immediate force, 50 times the impact on your delicate neural pathways. Yet, in this paradox of power, it is also 50 times shorter in its duration. It is a flash, a devastating, intense blink in the grand tapestry of human sensation. When it enters your system, there is no gentle climb, no gradual swell of warmth and light. It hits instantly, with an almost brutal immediacy, like a tidal wave crashing upon a shore. The brief, intense rush consumes you in a matter of seconds. And just as quickly as it arrives, it recedes, leaving behind not a lingering afterglow, but an acute, profound emptiness. There is no time to savor, no space for reflection, no moment to truly live through the experience. Users don't soar, they don't fly on its currents. Instead, with this particular substance, the experience is so overwhelming, so instantaneous, that they often simply collapse in seconds. The sheer force of its effect on the central nervous system is too much for the body to consciously process, too swift for the mind to fully register before profound changes take hold. The high itself is too brief to genuinely live through, a fleeting, almost imperceptible moment of manufactured bliss. And tragically, for many, it is simply too strong to survive. The danger lies in its terrifying efficiency. Fentanyl acts so rapidly and so powerfully on the brain's respiratory centers that breathing often stops before the brain can even fully comprehend the magnitude of what is happening, before it can register the impending doom. One moment, you're chasing that elusive quiet. The next, your most fundamental life-sustaining process ceases, silently, without warning, before the full consciousness of dying can even fully bloom. It is a stealthy, almost merciless cessation. Fentanyl, you realize, is not a grand doorway to paradise, not a shimmering portal to another realm. It is, instead, a cleverly concealed trapdoor beneath your feet, designed to open without notice, plunging you into an irreversible void. It promises a bliss so utterly fast, so devastatingly potent, that it grants no one the time or the capacity to return and describe its true nature, its ultimate endpoint. It offers an illusion of heaven, but delivers a swift, silent, and very real end, leaving behind only the profound absence of what once was. From a certain chilling perspective, the efficiency and potency of fentanyl present a macabre perfection, but it is a perfection observed from the cold, calculating eye of profit, not from the empathetic heart of human concern. For dealers, those who traffic in the currency of despair and longing, fentanyl is an ideal commodity. It's astonishingly cheap to produce, requiring relatively simple chemical processes compared to other illicit drugs. It is supremely potent, meaning even a tiny amount can be diluted into a vast quantity of product, stretching supply and maximizing returns. And its physical form of fine, often white powder, makes it incredibly easy to conceal, to package, and to ship across vast distances without detection. A single truckload, containing what might appear to be an innocuous, small cargo, possesses the horrifying potential to poison an entire nation, to leave a trail of devastation across communities. But the insidious danger, the truly cruel twist in this narrative, lies in its surreptitious distribution. Fentanyl rarely travels alone. It is often invisibly mixed into other drugs, a silent, deadly contaminant. It might be blended into heroin, boosting its potency and creating a cheaper, more powerful product. It finds its way into cocaine, transforming a stimulant into a depressant with catastrophic consequences. Perhaps most deceptively, it is pressed into counterfeit pills, painstakingly made to mimic commonly prescribed medications like oxycodone, Xanax, or Adderall. These pills, identical in appearance to their pharmaceutical counterparts, carry a hidden, lethal secret. The buyer, often seeking a familiar comfort, a specific effect, or simply relief from pain, never knows the true contents of what they are consuming. They swallow a pill, inhale a powder, believing it to be one thing, completely unaware of the invisible, deadly addition. The moment of realization, if it comes at all, arrives far too late. A few milligrams, too much. A minuscule, almost imperceptible amount, roughly equivalent to a few grains of sand, and hearts simply stop mid-beat. Breathing ceases. Life extinguishes, not with a struggle, but with an abrupt, silent finality. A betrayal from within the very substance sought for solace. The numbers speak to the terrifying scale of this hidden crisis. In 2023 alone, authorities seized a staggering 115 million fentanyl pills across the United States. And within that colossal haul, a harrowing statistic emerged: a full 70% of those seized pills contained a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. This means that for every 10 pills intercepted, 7 carried the immediate, stark risk of death. It is a chilling testament to the pervasive danger. The roots that once carried illicit profit, the veins and arteries of the drug trade, now also carry an overwhelming tide of death. The supply chain of yearning has become the supply chain of oblivion. And in this chilling equation, the ease of production, the potency, and the stealthy distribution of fentanyl create a perfect storm, a profound tragedy woven into the very fabric of its existence. It is a dealer's dream, born of human desperation, leading relentlessly to a human nightmare. You have traversed a landscape of illusion and despair, of profound promises and brutal realities. Now, in the quiet afterglow of this journey, you are invited to look into a final mirror, a reflection that holds not just the image of a chemical, but perhaps a deeper truth about ourselves. Fentanyl is more than just a poison, more than a drug that brings fleeting pleasure and ultimate destruction. It is, in its most profound sense, a mirror, reflecting back to us a haunting image of our own emptiness, our collective vulnerability. We, as a society, as individuals, created this chemical. We engineered it, refined it, set it loose in the world, often with the singular, powerful intention to erase pain. It was a quest for relief, for liberation from suffering. But in our audacious attempt to obliterate pain, to silence its insistent voice, we inadvertently began to erase something else along with its meaning. Without the counterpoint of struggle, without the lessons learned in moments of discomfort, without the profound relief that follows genuine effort, the very fabric of meaning begins to fray. Consider the delicate balance once more. Without pain, joy becomes hollow, a shallow echo rather than a vibrant, resonant experience. It is the contrast, the chiaroscuro of human experience, that gives depth and dimension to our feelings. The triumph of overcoming a challenge is only truly sweet because of the effort and discomfort that preceded it. The warmth of love is most profoundly felt against the backdrop of potential loneliness. Fentanyl, in its devastating efficiency, obliterates that essential boundary, dissolving the nuanced spectrum of human emotion. What it leaves behind, in its wake, is not a heightened state of being, but a profound, pervasive numbness. It offers heaven, a brief, blinding glimpse of paradise, in the span of a single, racing heartbeat. But what it delivers in return, an almost unimaginable price to pay, is an eternity in hell that follows, a relentless cycle of craving and suffering, of emptiness and despair. This is the ultimate, cruelest paradox of its existence. The most devastating fate, the true tragedy, you realize, is not found in the cessation of life itself. It is, instead, in the profound, aching emptiness of living without ever truly feeling alive, without genuinely experiencing the rich, complex tapestry of human existence, both its shadows and its light. So, as you slowly return from this journey, as the quiet of the night deepens around you, carry this gentle but essential understanding within your heart. The feeling, that initial, overwhelming promise of pure bliss, is not real. It is an illusion, a chemical whisper, a beautifully constructed lie. But the death, the profound loss, the silent erasure that often follows, always, undeniably, is. May you find true peace in the quiet moments of your own, authentic existence.